David strolled lazily through the school compound, hands in his pockets, lost in thought about the upcoming exams. The evening breeze was cool, and the hostel area was unusually quiet. As he walked past the female hostel, something caught his eye. A beautiful pink pant hung gracefully on a drying line. It was unlike any he had ever seen before, a perfect blend of elegance and mystery. The silky fabric shimmered slightly under the setting sun, and for some inexplicable reason, his heart skipped a beat. He found himself staring, unable to look away. A strange feeling stirred within him, an odd yet intense fascination. His mind raced. Who owns this? He imagined the owner as someone graceful, refined, and beautiful beyond words. At that moment, an idea took root in his mind. He had to find her. This wasn't just about curiosity. It felt like destiny. But how could he begin such a ridiculous quest? He barely knew anyone in the female hostel. Still, he felt an unshakable pull toward this unknown girl. And so, his unusual journey began. Even as David walked to his hostel, he couldn't shake off the image of the pink pant from his mind. That night, as he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, he found himself constructing scenarios about the mysterious owner. Asterisk, is she tall or short? Dark-skinned or fair? Is she a junior or a senior student? Even though he had no idea who she was. The next day after the day's activities, he found himself roaming around the female hostel again, hoping to catch a glimpse of someone retrieving the pant from the drying line. He tried to act casual, pretending to be on a call while secretly observing from a distance. Girls walked past him, laughing and chatting, but none went near the drying lines. His eyes remained fixed on the pink pant, still hanging undisturbed. He sighed in frustration. How do I even begin this search? Later that evening, he confided in his best friend, Chucks, who burst into uncontrollable laughter. David, you mean to tell me that you're in love with a pant? Not even the girl, just the pant. Chucks wiped tears from his eyes, struggling to contain himself. David frowned. It's not just a pant, Chucks. It's a symbol of something deep. I don't know how to explain it. Chucks shook his head, still amused. And how exactly do you plan to find her? Knock on every girl's door and ask if she owns a pink pant. David sighed. It did sound ridiculous, but the thought of giving up never crossed his mind. He had to find her no matter how long it took. Determined to begin his search, David devised a simple plan. He would spend more time around the female hostel, hoping to notice who retrieved the pink pant. The following evening, he positioned himself at a nearby kiosk, pretending to buy snacks while keeping his eyes fixed on the drying line. Minutes passed, then an hour. Girls came and left, but no one touched the pink pant. Just as he was about to leave, a girl walked towards the drying lines. She was tall, slender, and had her hair tied in a neat bun. His heart raced as she reached for a cloth. But instead of the pink pant, she took a white blouse and left. David sighed. This will be harder than I thought. He needed a new approach. If waiting wouldn't work, he had to get closer. That night, he thought about sneaking into the hostel area and checking the surrounding rooms. It was a risky idea, but his curiosity burned stronger than ever. The next morning, David took a bold step. He pretended to be looking for his lost pen and wandered near the entrance of the female hostel. A group of girls sat outside, chatting. He approached them nervously. Excuse me, I think I lost my pen around here yesterday. Have any of you seen it? One of the girls looked up. A pen? Which color? Blue. The girls exchanged glances before one of them pointed towards the hostel. Maybe you should ask the hostel matron. She usually picks up lost items. David thanked them and walked away. His plan had failed. He couldn't just ask them about a pink pant without sounding like a pervert. But he wasn't giving up. He just needed another way. Later that evening, David sat with Chucks at their usual spot near the cafeteria. Bro, you're taking this thing too far, Chucks said, munching on a meat pie. I need to find her, Chucks. There has to be a way. Chucks shook his head. You're chasing a ghost. But fine, let's think. What if you sneak into the hostel laundry area? Most girls wash their clothes on weekends. You might see who owns it. David's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. It's also risky, Chucks warned. If you're caught, you're finished. David understood the risk, but at this point he was willing to take it. Saturday arrived, and David put Chuck's idea into action. He positioned himself behind the bushes near the hostel, pretending to read a book. Girls moved around, carrying basins of clothes, chatting as they washed. He observed carefully, waiting for someone to bring out the pink pant because it had been retrieved from the line when he left the last time. Minutes turned into an hour, then 2. Nothing. He was beginning to lose hope when suddenly, he spotted a girl holding a pink garment. His heart pounded. Could this be it? She dipped the cloth into the water, scrubbed it gently, and spread it on the line. But as David looked closer, disappointment hit him. It was a pink handkerchief, not the pant. He sighed. Another failed attempt. Days passed. And David's obsession only grew stronger. He started feeling frustrated until, one afternoon, help came from an unexpected source. Chinaza, a popular girl in his class, caught him staring at the female hostel and smirked. David, what exactly are you looking for? David hesitated. Should he tell her? He decided to take the risk. I'm looking for the owner of a pink pant I saw on the drying line last week. Instead of laughing, Chinaza raised an eyebrow. Pink pant. I might be able to help. David's eyes widened. You know who owns it? Not yet, but I can find out. For a price. David knew Chinaza was serious. She had a way of getting information, but she never did anything for free. What do you want? He asked cautiously. Chinaza smiled. You'll do my assignments for a month. David groaned. He hated assignments. But if it meant finding his mystery girl, it was a small price to pay. Fine, he agreed. Chinaza grinned. Deal. Give me 3 days. 3 days later, Chinaza met David at the cafeteria. I have good news, she said, sipping her juice. David leaned forward eagerly. Tell me. Chinaza smirked. The pink pant belongs to someone in room 15. David's heart pounded. He was getting closer. David now had a lead. He just needed to find a way into room 15 without raising suspicion. He decided to befriend someone in the room, hoping they would unknowingly reveal the owner. His plan was set in motion. But would it work? David knew he couldn't just walk into room 15 without an excuse. He needed a strategy. He asked around and discovered that one of the girls in the room, Esther, was his classmate. She was quiet and always sat at the front of the classroom. The next day, David deliberately sat beside her, knowing fully well that her seatmate skipped school that day. Hey, Esther, right? He said, flashing his most charming smile. She looked surprised but nodded. Yes. You're David. Yeah. I noticed you're really good at taking notes. I was wondering if I could borrow yours from last week. I missed some details. Esther hesitated but eventually agreed. Sure. But it's not here. You can come to my hostel later before they lock our gate. David's heart leaped. His plan was working. That evening at 4 p.m., David knocked on room 15's door, his palms slightly sweaty. Esther opened it and welcomed him in. Inside, 5 other girls were chatting and laughing. As Esther handed him the notes, David's eyes subtly scanned the drying lines inside the room. He needed a sign, anything to confirm the owner of the pink pant. Then he saw it. A small pink underwear hanging inside, near a bunk bed. His pulse quickened. Could this be the same one? David tried to act normal as he asked. So, do you all stay in this room? One of the girls, a dark-skinned beauty with dimples, laughed. Why? Are you looking for someone? David chuckled nervously. No, just curious. Esther introduced them. That's Amaka, Blessing, Naomi, and Grace. David's eyes lingered on Grace. Something about her felt different. Was she the one? David needed confirmation. As he left the room, he turned back. By the way, I saw a pink pant on the drying line outside last week. It was really nice. Who owns it? The room went silent. The girls exchanged amused glances before bursting into laughter. Grace finally spoke. Are you seriously asking about a pant? David felt his face heat up, but he nodded. Yeah, just curious. Amaka smirked. That belongs to Grace. I know you are a senior student, but you should start going before the visiting hours end. David's heart pounded. He had found her. And now that David knew the owner, he had a new challenge. How to get close to Grace without making things awkward. She was friendly but also confident, not someone easily impressed. Over the next few days, David looked for ways to interact with her. He started showing up at places she frequented, the cafeteria, the library, and even the hallway close to the locker. He always made sure to greet her casually, planting the seed of familiarity. Grace, however, seemed unaware of his growing obsession. One evening, as David was leaving class, he overheard a conversation that made his heart stop. Grace was talking to a friend. I need to throw away that pink pant. I've had it for too long. David's stomach tightened. That pant is a symbol of our connection. Asterisk. He knew he had to act fast before it was gone forever. David's mind raced. How do I stop her? He couldn't just tell her, hey, don't throw away your pant because I'm in love with it. She would think he was crazy. Then an idea struck him. What if he stole it before she threw it away? That way he would keep his symbol, and find a way to use it to confess his feelings. It was a ridiculous plan, but David was too deep into his obsession to think logically. The morning before laundry day, while others were in the assembly ground, David sneaked to the female hostel. The room 15 was a bit dim and all the students were in school already. He crept toward the drying line where they keep their pants as his heart pounds. There it was, the pink pant hanging innocently. With one swift motion, he grabbed it and shoved it into his pocket. Then he rushed back to his own hostel, breathing heavily. He had done it. But what next? Holding the pant in his hands, David felt a strange mix of excitement and guilt. What if someone saw him? What if Grace found out? During lunch, Chucks burst into laughter as David told him everything that happened. David, you're officially insane. You stole a girl's underwear because you love her. David groaned. I don't know what to do, man. Chucks shook his head. You're in deep trouble, bro. So you have graduated from roaming around a female hostel to stealing a pant. I pity you when you are caught. The next morning in the assembly ground, the principal announced, a girl's pant is missing from the drying line in her hostel room. David's stomach dropped. They're looking for it. He had to act fast before things got worse. David's heart pounded as he listened to the murmurs around the school corridor as they walked to the class. The girls were looking for the missing pink pant, and if he wasn't careful, he could be exposed. He tried to act normal, but inside his mind raced. Who could have stolen a pant? One of the guys in his class asked. Maybe a pervert, another responded, laughing. David forced a chuckle and walked away. He needed to get rid of the pant, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. It wasn't just fabric to him, it was a connection to Grace. But if he kept it, he risked being caught. That evening, David met Chucks in their room. Bro, you need to return that pant before things get serious, Chuck said, arms crossed. David sighed. I can't. Chucks frowned. Then be ready for the consequences because they are searching all the hostel rooms. David knew Chucks was right. He had to return it before he was caught or an innocent person being accused. David formulated a plan. He would return the pants secretly, making it look like it was never stolen. The next morning, he crept toward the female hostel again, the pant folded in his pocket. His plan was simple, hang it back on the line and walk away. He reached the drying area, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and quickly clipped the pant back onto the line. Relief flooded him. Mission accomplished. After the day's activities, David branched the female hostel and watched from a distance as the girls checked the drying lines. Grace spotted the pant and frowned. This is strange. I was sure it was missing. Her friend laughed. Maybe you forgot where you kept it. David exhaled. Crisis averted. But just as he thought he was safe, Grace made an unexpected decision. I don't trust this pant anymore. I'll throw it away. David froze. No. David had to act fast. He needed to stop her, but how? He couldn't exactly say, "Don't throw it away because I love it." That would sound insane. Instead, he came up with a wild idea. He waited for them to come outside and walked over to where Grace was standing and pretended to admire her outfit. "Hey Grace, I like your fashion sense. You always look great." She smiled. "Thanks." Then he added, "You even have stylish underwear. I saw that pink pant the other day, and it looked unique." Grace raised an eyebrow. "You noticed my pant." David realized his mistake. Grace stared at him, her expression unreadable. Why would a guy notice a girl's pant? David stammered. I just meant, I saw it on the line and it looked fancy." Her friends started whispering. One of them, Amaka, laughed. "David, are you a pant collector?" David forced a laugh, but inside he was panicking. He needed to fix this. Thinking quickly, David said, "Actually, my sister has a similar one, and she was asking where to buy new ones. I just remembered when I saw yours." Grace relaxed a little. "Oh, well, I got it from the market in town before we resumed." David sighed in relief. Crisis avoided again. Surprisingly, that conversation helped David get closer to Grace. They started talking more often, and soon they became casual friends. David was overjoyed. He was finally inside her circle. But now he had a bigger challenge. How to turn their friendship into something more. David wanted to confess his feelings, but he couldn't just say, "I fell in love with you because of a pant." So he decided to write her an anonymous love letter. He spent hours crafting the perfect words, avoiding anything that would expose his obsession. The next day, David slipped the letter into Grace's locker. It read, "Dear Grace, there's something special about you. Something that caught my attention before I even knew your name. You have a way of standing out, of making the ordinary seem extraordinary. I've admired you from afar, but I've been too afraid to say it directly. If you're curious to know who I am, meet me under the big tree near the library at 5 p.m. today." David signed it as "Your secret admirer." David waited under the tree, his heart pounding. Would she come? Or would she ignore the letter? At exactly 5 p.m., he saw her approaching. She looked around, confused. "Hello. Who's here?" David stepped forward. "It's me." Grace's eyes widened in surprise. "David, you wrote the letter." David nodded, his palms sweating. "Yes. I've been meaning to tell you how I feel." Grace was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. "I didn't expect this, but I'm flattered." David's heart leaped. "So, what do you think?" Grace hesitated. "I think you're sweet, but I don't know if I feel the same way." David's heart sank. "Oh," Grace quickly added, "but I would like to know you better." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. David still had a chance. From that day on, David and Grace became closer. They spent more time together, studying, sharing stories and laughter. David was patient, knowing that if he played his cards right, she might eventually see him differently. But there was still one problem. He had to make sure she never found out about the pink pant obsession. One evening, as they talked, Grace laughed. "You know, I once lost a pant and found it back in the same spot. It was so weird." David's stomach dropped. He forced a laugh. "That is weird." Grace narrowed her eyes. "Wait, David, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" David's heart stopped. Grace stared at him, waiting for his response. David swallowed hard. "Me? Why would I know anything about your pant?" Grace smirked. "I don't know, but your reaction is suspicious." David forced a laugh. "Trust me, I have nothing to do with it." Grace let it go, but David knew she wasn't convinced. A few days later, as they all walked to the hostel, Chucks accidentally let the secret slip in front of Grace. "David, you mean after all the trouble you went through for that pink pant, you still haven't won her heart?" Grace gasped. Wait, what? David's face turned pale. He was caught. Grace looked at David in shock. You were in love with my pant. David stammered. It's not what it sounds like. I saw it and felt drawn to you before I even knew you. Grace burst into laughter. David, this is the weirdest love story ever. David was relieved she wasn't angry, but he still felt embarrassed. After laughing for a while, Grace shook her head. David, you're crazy. But I kind of like that about you. David blinked. Wait, does that mean? Grace smiled. Yes, dummy. I like you too. David couldn't believe it. His ridiculous journey had actually worked. As he lay on his bed that night, he made up his mind to ask Grace out the next day. He knew that their final exams were almost here, and if he doesn't take chances now, he might lose her forever. During lunch the next day, David privately asked her out and Grace said yes with a big smile. She knew she loved his audacity from day one. To Grace, she didn't just accept his proposal because of mere high school feelings but for the future, knowing fully well how deeply David loved her. David and Grace officially became a couple, and though their love story was bizarre, it was theirs. And as for the pink pant, Grace kept it as a reminder of the craziest love story she had ever heard of been a part of. This is the end. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more interesting stories like this.